Welcome. Ready to get started? We have lots of post-meal energy here. Yes? We're in a kind of a dim room. We don't want you to get too relaxed. I'd like to start by just introducing myself. My name is Marta Turba. I am here representing WorldatWork, which is a group of HR professionals focused on making total rewards excellent in organizations globally. We're a nonprofit organization, and I joined the organization about 6 years ago as the director of total rewards content, and right now I lead content strategy for all of the organization. We are focused a lot on building skills and capabilities within total rewards, and I forgot to turn on my mic. I apologize for that. 1 second. In my role at WorldatWork, we basically drive the content strategies that relate to elevating total rewards capabilities for organizations all around the world. I lead a team of subject matter experts that are focused on what's going on right now and what's going on next in the profession. And we work with a lot of members, thousands of members, to help them develop the right solutions for their organizations. So that's a little bit about my background. I'd like to just, by a show of hands here, learn a little bit about you. And we did a similar ask in the last session, but different group of people here. How many of you have accountability for leading or contributing to total rewards in your organizations? Almost everybody. Okay, great. And how many of you have a background in total rewards, meaning you've done it for more than a few years at a few organizations? It's been a core part of your responsibilities for a while. Okay, great. And last question, how many of you have people within your teams that help execute or build your total reward strategies? Okay, good. You have some. We have some leaders here that have help, and that's always a wonderful thing. Well, we're here today to talk about total rewards leadership in general, and specifically, the title of the session is, do you want to become a total rewards certified total rewards leader? I'm not necessarily going to sell you on the certification. What I'm here to talk about is really what sets total rewards leaders apart, why it's a little bit of a skill set difference from other areas that you may need to manage, and what really sets those organizations that have mature total rewards functions apart from those that don't. All of this kind of tells a story about those organizations that are focused on making a difference to the bottom line, to the employee experience. They're the ones that are skilled at leveraging rewards in a lot of different ways, and specifically in an integrated way. I have, over the course of my career, led a lot of different rewards teams, and my career path started really heavily in compensation, and then it flipped over to benefits, and then I was accountable for all of it. But it was interesting, when my role switched, I got promoted quite rapidly, frankly, because I was a really great technical expert. I could, build any spreadsheet, I could model any scenario. I was promoted based on my technical abilities, but when I found myself in the leadership chair, success in that chair is not based on your technical abilities for the most part. It's based on your business acumen and your influence. And those are capabilities that we as HR leaders need to build, sometimes within ourselves, but also within our total rewards colleagues or HR colleagues that are working in comp and benefit programs, because that's where there's potential to drive significant business impact. And the reality is that oftentimes the impact potential for total rewards is kind of leaving potential on the table. It's not driving the level of return on investment that one might expect. And there's a lot of good reasons for that. So we're at kind of this unique point in time as we're here talking about things. How many of you in this organization have expanded your team significantly in the last 2 years? Ooh, there's a few people. Okay, that's good. That's a good positive story. Did you expand your teams because your organizations have grown through like acquisition, merger, or headcount? Just grown in general? Headcount. Okay, great. So you have aligned your investments in people accordingly. Well, in most organizations, they're kind of experiences the reality and this pressure that's just happening in HR at the same time as happening within the workforce, which is, there's more pressure to deliver greater results, first of all, technology and the impact of AI is changing the nature of everybody's work, the jobs within our organizations and the jobs within HR. And in general, we're being asked to do more with less. And I don't think that HR professionals are necessarily unique in that area, but we're the ones that have to deliver the results. We have to deliver results, and when you look at the things that are really mattering in our organization, like engagement and culture and performance and being able to actually articulate the return on investment that you're delivering, that all matters. And having a systematic way to do that is really important. It's an important success factor. What's on the screen right now is just a snapshot, so we're all kind of speaking the same total rewards language. This model, it was introduced by WorldatWork 26 years ago, although it looks nothing like what was introduced 26 years ago. Our history as an organization, we were originally called the American Compensation Association. Comp was our sole focus, and over time, there was a great realization that obviously all of the other aspects of rewards are the things that drive impact within organizations. So our focus really expanded to be more of the Total Rewards Association. Now, when we talk about total rewards, we look at the kind of that bullseye area in the center of this model: compensation, benefits, well-being, recognition, and careers. And those are the areas that, if you're building up capabilities and programs and offerings, those are really where your employee value proposition gets shaped within your organization. And for many of my colleagues who kind of grew up in HR teams and in rewards teams, that's where most of our early or even later career focus was, depending on how deep of a technical expert we became. Designing and building great programs is really, really important. But when it comes to leading to total rewards, it's a totally different skill set. The rest of that model is actually equally important to the technical pieces that are in the center. So on the left-hand side, we talk about the influences, all of the influences that we as HR leaders have to navigate each and every day. They're important in HR. They're also equally important if your goal is to elevate your total rewards practices. So knowing how to not just interpret economic changes, but anticipate them, and then agilely align all of your practices to really match the challenges that are out there, whether those challenges happen to be related to the labor market or inflationary issues or the rapid introduction of AI and technology. All of it matters, but the leadership capability is knowing how to navigate and influence those factors. And those internal influences are equally important. This is where we're all experts within our own organizations. We have the right partnerships to understand what our organizational strategy is, how we can actually align solutions to accelerate it and boost it. And we do all this as reward leaders or as HR leaders with kind of two things in mind. One thing, actually, organization performance and return to our shareholders and our members, right? But I believe strongly, and evidence has shown strongly, that can only be delivered through amazing employee experiences. So if I had to describe what total rewards leadership is, there's a lot of cliches out there about it being art and science, but it really is. Because it's figuring out what the right mix of, the right balance, if you will, of cost and value across all of those 5 dimensions of total rewards, putting the strategy in place to make sure those things are balanced and really driving impact in your organization, and then keeping up with all the changes that happened so you are always ahead of the curve. So that's what the total rewards model is. That's just a kind of a backdrop for our discussion. We touched on this in our last session. Why does rewards, why does comp matter so much in organizations? Well, I'd say there's 2 reasons. From an employee's perspective, whether this is right or not, it's just a really human reaction, and I won't do hand gestures anymore. Pay is personal, right? For some reason, pay is just a number, but people look at it as a representation of their worth, and that gets really personal. So you have to get it right if you want to engage your workforce. That's the first reason. Second reason is more dollars and cents. In most organizations, your total rewards or pay expenses can account for more than 70% of your operating expenses. And that's a pretty major investment, right? There's, frankly, in most organizations, you might not have other investments that are at that same level unless you have a lot of capital or real estate or what other investments. So when you look at that, total rewards is a significant investment, and it requires more than passive management. Like, show of hands here, and this doesn't have anything to do with, this is probably more of a work design question, but if you think about the team within your organization that is accountable to deliver total rewards, so let's just keep it simple and say pay, benefits, recognition, okay, those three things. How much of their focus is on doing that? I know that some people, if you're a leader in this room, you don't have the luxury of focusing really deep in those areas. But when you think about all the resources on your teams that are focused on this, are they spending more than like 20, 30% of their time in rewards? Not really. What's taking attention? What's taking more attention? What's more important than rewards?
Running the business, right?
Running the business. Yep, absolutely. So hiring, engagement, making sure staffing levels are appropriate.
Employee relations takes a lot of.
Speak up, please.
Employee relations takes a lot.
Employee relations. Yep, absolutely. And if you think about it, if you just think about this at the simplest level, like just think about how you run your family. You got a lot of stuff going on with your family, right? But there always needs to be that long-term plan on the financial side to make sure that all of your needs are being met, your short-term goals, your long-term goals. That's kind of the art and science of balancing all of the different elements of total rewards. So the stakes are high with total rewards. It doesn't necessarily mean you have to spend more time. It just means that it's worthy of discipline in management. And that discipline looks different in different organizations. But the one thing that it has in common is being able to demonstrate like a measurable impact overall. That's the one key thing. And the next slide is a little bit of, I don't want to say bad news, but within HR, our stakeholders internally don't always have confidence in our ability to deliver organizational performance results. Now that's kind of hard to take, right? And this is one study. Now I personally hate this study because I talk to total rewards and HR leaders every day that are doing really cool things in their organizations, and I know that they're driving significant impact. But yet there's still a little bit of a perception issue out there. Only 28% of our stakeholders, so these are the leaders that we work with, say that they're very satisfied with the value that HR is providing overall to the organization. And when you take that a few steps further, not everyone within our stakeholder group has confidence that we are able to drive measurable impact, so like truly organizational performance through HR strategies. So you know what, we can just look at this as a snapshot in time and a challenge. WorldatWork has focused so much on total rewards leadership topics in the last year. We've done a ton of studies, we've done a ton of working with different customers, and I'm not a research scientist, okay, but I'm walking away with a really clear impression that there's not a lot of capability gaps in organizations. There's a lot of skilled HR leaders out there that when they focus on rewards issues, they drive some really meaningful results in their organization. But the gaps that I do see relate to how we actually articulate what we're doing and why we're doing it, and measuring the impact that that has on the business. So in some ways, it may be a little bit of a PR issue, but it's a PR issue that we can work together to solve. So if confidence is low overall, what does that mean? It basically means that right now, even if rewards is going really well in your organization in general, just a show of hands, how's rewards going in your organization? Anybody want to say it's going pretty well? I mean, always room for improvement, but going pretty well? Good. That's great. There's a lot of confidence. For the organizations where you think it's not going so well, why not? What are the challenges? I'm sure there's a million. If there's 30 people in this room, you probably have 30 different challenges, but just call out a couple of ideas.
Needs more structure.
More structure? Why?
Just because we've switched platforms, we've switched philosophies, and so we're kind of in that middle period. Our staff has grown considerably.
Okay.
So we've had to adjust wages, and it just needs more structure around it, I think, to
Okay.
kind of meet what we've done.
Yeah, and maybe that structure actually leads to more confidence from the people that are utilizing the pay systems, right? Okay, great example. So the challenge of total rewards leadership, and first of all, why is it important? It's important because it's driving your most important asset and your most important liability. So you kind of have it on both sides. And how do you actually go about improving it? Well, we could do like a week-long masterclass on this topic, and that's not this session. But I will break it down into two topics. And if we kind of just peel back the layers on these two topics, we get at a lot of the needs that I'm hearing from WorldatWork members. The first is, if you want to lead change within your total rewards function, you have to have a mindset that focuses on advancing total rewards maturity within your organization. We're going to talk about what maturity means because there actually is a formal definition. It's been studied really well. And it's a different way of looking at the work that relates to total rewards. The second thing that you need to drive really great impact as an HR leader who's accountable for rewards is an extended team that's enabled to stand up your strategy and really make a difference. We have small and mighty HR teams, and they do a great job, but you know what? We also have a lot of extended teams, including our managers and our leaders, and that's how those rewards experience come to life in a lot of cases for employees. So those are the two critical areas to invest in, and if you do, you see something change in that middle overlap area, which is business results are elevating, employee experience is elevating as well. So Deloitte did a study in 2024, I believe it was called the Total Rewards Impact Study, and I am fascinated by this study. If you haven't heard of it or read it, I'd encourage you to go out to their website and download it. It's available to everybody. But it basically says that organizations that have great total rewards practices are actually driving better results. That's just the bottom line. It's not that we're doing all the things right, and we don't have the easiest to understand programs or the most compliant programs, although those may be some added benefits. This study really just focused in on, when we talk about total rewards leadership and excellence, what does success look like? And in general, these organizations are 1.5 times more likely to retain people. They are 1.6 times more likely to secure talent, be able to acquire talent. And in general, they outperform their competition in a lot of areas, not in HR practices, but in business practices. So there's definitely a strong correlation between having a mature total rewards function, one that's really focused on delivering return on investment and value and driving business results. Now, the study itself, first of all, looked at about 700 organizations, mostly in the United States. These were organizations at all sizes and across all industries. And they set out to measure certain practices and dimensions that are related to how you're setting up total reward strategies within your organization. So the dimensions that were measured are on the left-hand side: strategy, communication, recognition, tech and analytics, workforce experience, and transparency and equity. Now this in itself, I think, is a valuable little model to take a look at, because when I look at total rewards and how we're managing it in our organization, I don't always look at it through those five or six different areas. So this was a specific intentional study that was setting out to prove whether moving the needle in those dimensions actually has an impact on business performance. And the answer was absolutely yes, it does, but they don't all have an equal impact. So based on the results of the study, basically they classified all organizations into a maturity scale that really had certain characteristics, and you could see the types of impact that was being driven in the organization based on those characteristics. So at the top level, 18% of organizations that was considered like the pinnacle of total rewards impact. These are very high-performing organizations. They typically have the most mature function. They offer comprehensive programs. But one thing that they don't have is they don't necessarily have the greatest investment in total rewards. It's not that they have more programs, and it's not that they're spending more on a per employee basis. It's that they've really figured out kind of that sweet spot to optimize all of their offerings. They've started to segment things for different groups within their workforce, and they're dialing in how those plans are performing. So, in a nutshell, this is the top level. These are the areas that are driving the most value in organizations. The next level down, 23% of organizations were centered in what's being classified as comprehensive and integrated. Comprehensive meaning a full suite of total rewards programs and portfolios, probably managing everything from career development to well-being to health plans and various types of programs. So very comprehensive in nature, very integrated in nature. So not necessarily tailored towards employee segment groups, but integrated into HR functions and other functions within the organization, very aligned to business strategy. So in other words, doing a great job and probably having all the right things in place, but maybe just not taking it to the refinement level as you see at that next level, which is level 4. So not necessarily dialing in the financial performance yet. So that's like the positive snapshot. That's the 40% positive snapshot of the world. The more concerning results are the lower part of the model, those organizations that are approaching rewards in more transactional or siloed ways, or if they've kind of overcome managing the rewards in silos. And here's what I mean by rewards in silos. Maybe there's a comp team and a benefits team, or maybe you only look at comp once a year. More transactional, more event-based than integrated strategy-based. So very standalone, I guess I would say. The next level up from that is more established and connected. And these are, in general, the organizations in this group had the characteristics of being on the road to success. So they were starting to have more connection across HR teams. They were more connected with managers. They were building solutions that actually aligned to business problems. They weren't quite at that next level, but they're well on their way. So there is definitely a learning curve as a result of this study. We would say that there is a capability gap. About 60% of organizations need help in becoming higher impact related to the results that their total rewards programs are driving. So the next couple slides, we're going to dive into what does that look like, especially at the level 1 and level 2. But I'm kind of one that likes to cut to the chase and say, what do those level 4 organizations, that's where I want to be, right? What do those organizations do differently than the others? And we've already established that it's not that they're spending more money, and it's not necessarily that they have more programs, but they do often have more internal infrastructure and connection, especially in the area of digital enablement. So they're using more systems. They have better relationships with their IT groups. That's the first thing. They're using more systems to deliver their HR programs. So multiple platforms, not just a single HRIS, but actually having those systems integrated based on purpose. And the other characteristic is that they're actually enabling the teams that are managing these programs with nice solutions like balanced comp solutions or others to really enable the digital experience of the HR team as well. So those are just some of those standout characteristics. So what do you do with all that? You can't tell from the last slide where you may fall on that spectrum, but if you're like most organizations, you probably may not be at level 4. But you do want to understand, where you are today and where you may need to be in the future if your goal is to drive a greater impact and a greater return on your investments related to rewards. And there's nothing necessarily groundbreaking about how you attack this problem. You probably attack this problem in a similar way that you would attack most problems. you have to understand where your organization is today and have a really realistic perspective of what your practices are and what the impact of your practices are today. I've heard a lot of discussions about, we've shifted performance management, or we're trying something new in this area. I heard something about reverse pilots, and I'm just so excited to just embrace that concept. What things do you want to start peeling back because they just aren't serving the purpose that maybe they once did? So understanding your current state is the first step. The second step is really strategically thinking about where you may need to be. This is not a best practice scenario exercise. If there's 10 characteristics of fully optimized total rewards practices, you as an organization don't need to try to get 9 out of the 10. That's definitely not the experience that works for more organizations. Because you have strategic knowledge of where your talent needs are, where your organization and business needs are, you can look at this with a critical eye and say, you know what, these may be the best practices in total rewards, but if we move the needle on these 2 or 3 areas, these are the things that are really going to drive results within our organization. And then finally, our role as HR leaders is to drive this progress. And this is a long road. This isn't usually a 1 year or a single initiative. This is a multi-year endeavor rooted in a really good strategy that hopefully has a lot of executive support, because at times during this journey, the road gets rough. So if you make decisions about things that may be reinvestments, things that might be taken away and invested in different areas, you really do need that guiding philosophy to help you be strong in the face of what you're aiming to accomplish. And that's kind of the journey of total rewards leadership. And it's something that not everybody is prepared to do. It's a lot of times when you're looking for transformation, it is something that you have to learn. So when I speak with WorldatWork members, and especially I've talked to a lot of them about this study that I mentioned previously, the question was, I find this study, basically the feedback I have received is, I find this study really insightful, but I don't know what to do with it. I really need the step-by-step guide. And WorldatWork has been developing for the last 1.5 years a total rewards certification program for leaders, okay? And it's based on WorldatWork research. We validated a global body of knowledge that basically identifies what the most critical and frequently applied things of total rewards leaders in organizations all around the world are. So that's the foundation for the total rewards leadership program. And then we took it a couple of steps further, and we tried to establish a model that really connected with that body of knowledge, and it also connects with that Deloitte study that I shared. So this is a maturity assessment model. Both the certification program and this maturity assessment are going to be available November 1st. So if you don't already follow WorldatWork on LinkedIn, maybe you want to connect and you can keep tabs on this. And you want to keep tabs on it 2 reasons. Maybe you're interested in the total rewards certification, but even if you aren't, you will have access to this total rewards maturity model. And it might be an exercise that you want to do for your organization. It's not nearly as intimidating as maybe I'm making it sound. This would take you about 15 to 20 minutes of reflective time to really take a look at where you think your practices are in your organization right now. We base it on 5 different dimensions, not 6, like the Deloitte study. And those are strategic alignment, market agility, financial stewardship, communications, and that communication is up, down, sideways, all layers of communication in the organization, and operations excellence, which also includes employee experience. So those are the big dimensions that we've connected to success in total rewards leadership jobs. That's really what we are teaching within the total rewards leadership certification. If you go through this little assessment process, you can basically score. It's my team is also not research scientists. We call it the Glamour quiz. I don't know how old people are in this room, but remember that old magazine called Glamour, and you could take the 10-point quiz and figure out where you land. It is that simple. It might require maybe a little bit more thought than the Glamour quiz, but it's a 15-minute endeavor. And what I really like about it is you walk away knowing where your organization is in maturity. But the other thing that it does is it points you to where and how to address gaps. So let's just say that you score maturity and you find out that your organization is at a level 2, which is considered a strategic level. That's great. It's a nice snapshot of where you are right now, but likely you scored higher in some areas and lower in other areas. And if there were areas that you scored lower than you intended or than you expected, we point you towards a list of practices. There's 33 total practices that are outlined that basically say, okay, if you're lacking in market agility, here are the 3 areas you should zone into. And then you can score it a little bit more and say, oh, okay, this seems to be the one where we're really lacking. If we drive up that initiative, then we start to get more balanced out in our maturity. So it's a really organic approach. It's not prescriptive. It definitely relies on Total Rewards' best and proven practice, but it's balanced effectively with your knowledge of what makes a difference in your organization. And then that sets the blueprint for how you may choose to set some strategic plans within your rewards functions. Sounds easy, right? Totally easy? No problem. You should just do that and then set the goals for next year. Well, here's the hard part. You may come up with a great reward strategy, and hopefully the maturity index that we create will help you do just that. But the success of that strategy is dependent on really, I call it a 3-in-the-box model. And this model applies in most organizations, but it might look a little different in all organizations. How many have an organization where you actually employ people who focus on only comp and or benefits? Okay, just one. No, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay.
Well, benefits, not the comp.
And or benefits, yeah. So truly they wear the hat of I am a total rewards expert. This is what I live and breathe. That's what I spend my whole day doing. Okay, great. Not all organizations do, right? There's a lot of factors in place, including organization size and how you're organized. Maybe you're a subsidiary or a corporate, et cetera. But that's the left-hand side, that total rewards expert. You need total rewards experts within your reach. You don't always need them in your organization. But when you don't have them in your organization, oftentimes you have great partnerships with consulting groups or software groups or even legal firms that help you really make sure that your total rewards expertise is on point. Because the technical side does matter, right? Compliance matters. Good sound design matters, and that usually comes out of that left-hand side. On the right-hand side, the influencer box, that's where I would say total rewards really lives and breathes in the organization. If you run a traditional HR function, there's typically about 3 or 4 times more HR professionals than total rewards professionals. It's just the nature of running a niche function, and it's probably very appropriate for scale, which means that all of your reward strategies, whether they be comp or benefits or recognition, they come to life through how they're embedded into your core HR practices and how your leaders represent them with candidates and with employees. And that is not natural, okay? I'm not saying it's that hard, but it's not something that everybody just has as a skill set. It's a skill that needs to be developed. And I will say that the skill that's needed in the light blue box is almost entirely different than the skills that are needed in the left-hand side on that expert side. Because you know what? Most of our managers don't need a master class in how to design an incentive plan, but they do need to know how to communicate it and how to believe in it and how to really back up what your philosophy is. So we work on building those capabilities within all the boxes, right? And then at the top, that's you, right? The HR leader who's driving the entire strategy. And the most important thing that you do within your role is setting the strategy and building the capabilities to really make sure that that strategy can stand up and be successful within your organization. So, what skills matter in total rewards? Anybody here ever describe their comp or benefits people as the number side of the house?
What?
The numbers side of the house? No? That's how they used to describe my team. in my last employer, and it was like nails on a chalkboard to me. I do appreciate the numbers side of the house, and I employ a lot of people over my career who are great at stats and great at math, but I am more of the mindset of the speakers earlier today. Math was not always my favorite thing, and I have the grades to prove it. Now, that's actually pretty funny because I almost think in mathematical terms nonstop. So it's definitely a skill that you build over time the more you apply it. But when it comes to the skills that are essential for great total rewards, we're asking a lot of different things from the people who are, I just generally call them individual contributors. So these may be within your HR team, these may be within a specialized total rewards or benefits or comp team. But the skills that really matter, problem solving, business acumen, being able to actually draw decisions and tell stories with data. Anybody here do that really well within their teams right now, telling stories with data? Do you? Is that something that got built over time, or, where did you start?
It took a couple years to get good at it, but we do quarterly reports to our leadership team on benefits, recruiting, turnover, retention, and we can tell stories on if we have a culture problem in a department, if we have a recruiting problem with a specialization, if we have a benefit that's going really well. So
that's fantastic.
It's cool.
Especially in compensation. I'm going to pick on the comp team a little bit because I actually have this trait, and it has taken everything I could do to break this trait. There's something about the scientific approach to compensation if you're wanting to dive deep into the data and attain your best market data and then go through 20 steps to build a great salary structure and make sure everybody's properly placed. It's like this journey, and there's a lot of math behind it. And for some reason, that's the story that comp people are often tempted to tell, as if the more details we reveal, the more you should have confidence in the pay programs. And that's kind of like a storytelling miss. So we work with teams a lot on getting the story right, because the credibility comes actually from the story. It doesn't actually come from the work and doing all the right things to get to that story. So that's definitely a capability area that a lot of groups are working on. Relationship building. There's no question that building relationships across the organization is critical by the individual contributors, particularly if you're working through comp programs. Often these are the front lines who are working directly with your leaders on solutions that relate to pay or benefits or even bringing new talent into the organization. Knowing how to finesse those discussions, not be too rules-based, be more consultative, those are all really critical skills for people who are trying to drive impact in total rewards. If you've done all the things on the left-hand side, you can see that the last item is probably the most surprising that it's listed last, but this is all the technical information and technical expertise in the domain. I put it last because, you know what, frankly, it's the easiest to teach. Yes, sometimes it does need to be taught. It's not always intuitive, but when we're building capabilities in our team, the technical stuff can usually be taught in the classroom, but the other softer skills, those are things that come through experience and through application. On the right-hand side, this is the skills required of total rewards leaders overall. And interestingly, they're totally different than the individual contributors. So many people are getting promoted from a focus area of contributing at a program level, and then all of a sudden the ask as a leader is totally different. You're now being asked to manage the aspects of cost versus value. You're being asked to integrate a strategy overall. So it's really a different ask at the leadership level. And again, that's something that not everybody's prepared for when they take on the role to lead total rewards. So what I work with a lot is in our organizations, we have a lot of chief HR officers that get promoted through ranks and grow, and their exposure to rewards has been quite limited to execution before they step into the top leadership role. And then all of a sudden they're in the role where they both have to drive the strategy and build the teams to make it successful in the organization. So there's a lot of focus in that area. So WorldatWork as an association, it's a professional membership association, and we're just dedicated to learning. And I think I would simply call our learning approach very based on community as well as connection. So we connect with our members in a whole lot of different ways. Our aim is to help them learn where they need, when they need it, right? So we have daily publications that go out actually to the public, not just to our members. We have a lot of research resources. And if you've heard of WorldatWork previously, you might have heard our reputation has been built historically on certifications and education. We have a certified compensation professional program that most people know us for, but we also have a lot of other aspects of education because there's really a different need for development at all different levels. So I shouldn't say levels in the terms of hierarchy, but anybody here ever pursued any certification, whether it be with WorldatWork or another organization? A certain level of rigor that goes behind that, right? Certification's a great alternative for people that are willing to dive deep and really want to have that credential to prove their expertise. We have those solutions mainly in all areas of total rewards. But more and more frequently, we just have a lot of people who need information when they need it. And we have other courses that kind of fit that need. We have an essentials series that dives into common language, common structures in all areas. So whether it be compensation or benefits or total rewards. Our essentials courses are the ones where most HR teams are taking them, and they're using it as like their onboarding within their HR group. So for some of our corporate customers, we'll buy our essential series, and once per quarter for your first year, you take one of the essentials courses, and by the end of the year, you have some exposure into every area of total rewards. And that is something that they're not just doing for the people that are focused on building comp and benefit programs, but they're doing it for their entire HR teams. And why? Because it gives you exposure to like why certain things are designed the way they are, the complexity that may exist, and the role particularly of the HR influencers to really help stand up these strategies in organizations. We have immersion courses, which I like to describe as the boot camp. This is often immersion. Most people sign up for immersion after they gain a new job. So they got promoted into an area, and oh my, for the first time I'm leading a comp team. I need to get up to speed quickly. So it's 1 week and people ramp up. So the difference between a lot of these is really more of like your learning style and your learning need. Certification doesn't fit the need for everybody because not everybody wants to dive that deep in any one single topic. When it comes to WorldatWork certifications, anybody here ever look at certifications at WorldatWork, or have you maybe known anybody who's held any of these certifications? All right, I'm not necessarily here to encourage you to do that, but I want to just kind of point out one of the biggest, if we go back to what the skills gaps are that are impacting how much of a return we can drive through our rewards programs. A lot of that is the ability to be confident in the decisions that we're making, to drive the right decisions, and to actually measure what's making a difference in our organization. And within certification programs, that's really a primary focus. People gain the confidence and the expertise. It's important for themselves, okay? It gives your team confidence to work across your organization and solve some really hard problems. In some ways, it's important in terms of how they're viewed professionally as well, both inside the organization and externally. And I think that one of the biggest things that we notice with our certification programs, particularly when an HR leader is trying to map out a development path for their team, is that there's a lot of appreciation that come from employees who are looking to develop but don't know where to start. So there's like this retention mechanism, I guess I'd say, that comes with that. And you walk away with a team that's more prepared to drive impact within your organization. That's one of the best benefits that we get from certifications, regardless of where the focus is. But I think that the telling piece is what we hear from members. We follow up with members for the first 4 years after they're certified. And we basically say, did this have any impact on your job or on your career? or on your organization? And the answer across all of those factors is a resounding yes, it definitely did. Now, the 79% being able to secure a new job, that's probably not the one that's going to be the most interest to you if you're looking to build and retain a really skilled HR team. But the fact that you're investing in the skills within your HR team makes a big difference. It impacts how confident they feel in driving results within the organization. And that's one of the primary objectives we have within certification programs overall. So when we look at the Total Rewards Leadership Certification, so then just to recap, this is that's the name of this session, so I do feel like I should give you some specifics on it. This will be released and available if it's of interest to you in November. It was designed specifically for HR leaders who lead Total Rewards, as well as Total Rewards leaders that lead Total Rewards. So it's around those best practices to design and optimize rewards programs. It's not going to focus on technical basics. It's more on the traits that set integrated rewards functions apart from each other, and those things that really drive mature practices. So we did take a study. I mentioned that we did a body of knowledge study with Total Rewards leaders across the world, and there were certain things that set them apart, and these are the things that came up. First of all, they didn't look at themselves as Total Rewards leaders. They just looked at themselves as business leaders, and they were skilled enough to offer reward solutions to specific business problems that exist, right? Pretty simple. Not too different from most of us and how we view our roles in the organization. They also think like product owners. Now, this is a little bit new, but really, if you think about it, rewards programs typically, most are managing about 35 to 40 different types of solutions related to rewards in an organization, whether it be base pay or recognition or anniversary programs. There's really an array of products, if you will. We don't call them products. We might call them solutions. We might call them programs. But when you think like a product manager, it means that you're putting a lot of strategic thought into what you're offering. You're listening to your customers a lot. You're measuring the impact, and you don't continue the product unless you can actually prove the impact. And you're always adapting, and you're always promoting. So when you think about that, there's so much that we do in rewards that is very cyclical. But when you think about it as managing like a product manager and integrating all those things together, it almost becomes a different approach to how you look at rewards in your organization. Most leaders have mastered all the technical foundations, but if they haven't, they know how to build the relationships with those teams that can help them with that. They also build really strong partnerships across the organization. In fact, that's where most of the time is spent. In that way, whether you're an HR leader that just does rewards as a small slice of your focus, or whether you're focused on it full time, that's really a common trait across roles. They're fluent in skills taxonomies. Now, this is an area, it's a big capability gap, specifically in those groups that are focused on rewards full-time, okay? Now, when we have talent leaders who also do rewards, you guys are much more fluent in skill models and identifying the skills for the future that are going to drive sustainability in your business and figuring out what to pay for them. So, you know, there's different people in these career fields are coming from different backgrounds. Some come with a certain skill set and others develop the skill set to complement. Lifelong learners, and most importantly, we see way beyond compensation benefits. We see to the true talent asset that we're managing within our organizations. So that is really what the Total Rewards leadership capability is. And I'll leave you with this thought. In general, you're driving strategy, but the most important thing that you're doing within the organization is both setting the vision and building all the capabilities, both within your HR teams and your leadership teams, to be able to stand up that strategy and really drive some results within your organization. And you, as the guide and as the product integrator, you are there measuring those results and articulating those results and gaining a lot of confidence and making a lot of impact in the meantime. So that's really the vision for Total Rewards leadership, and that's the impact and the potential that we have with Total Rewards leadership as a focus. I'm going to open it up for a few questions now. And it doesn't have to be about this program necessarily. It could be about leadership challenges you may have. It may, anything spark your interest here. I'd be happy to answer any questions. Go ahead.
The immersion courses, you mentioned they're a week long, are they?
Yeah, when we do them in person, they're like 4 days. When we do them virtually, it's usually 1 day per week for 4 weeks. So altogether, it's probably about 30 hours of focused learning, but you walk away really like having a solid understanding of that particular area. I'm going to put a little bit of a plug in for one thing that I found incredibly helpful. My background has been in total rewards. I led total rewards teams for about 30 years before I joined WorldatWork. And I don't know how I did it, but in that time, I never had accountability to lead executive comp. I worked on executive comp programs. I was in board meetings. I was doing packages. I influenced different things, but I never actually had to lead the executive comp function. And WorldatWork does offer certification in that area, but you know what? I found it way too intimidating to even start there. So I took the Essentials course of executive comp recently. We just released that course this year. I found it so educational. It really filled in all the gaps that I had in my professional past. But I loved that the whole room was chief HR officers, and they were from all different kinds of organizations. Some were publicly traded, some were private, some were nonprofits, and they all had different executive comp experience, but there's definitely a lot of common threads throughout. So that might be an area that might pique interest. I know we talked a little bit about executive pay in that last session, and it struck me as something that's needed.
This is something that we struggle to communicate to our frontline employees and make them understand like truly what total compensation really is.
Yeah.
Total rewards. What do you think the best way to describe it to those lower level associates would be in the most digestible way?
I'm going to say this one depends a lot on your philosophy, right? So we have organizations that want to describe total compensation as all of the cash and non-cash contributions that make a difference in your career. That sounds great when you do it in like a really descriptive way, but then when you start to add up the math behind it, culture's worth 0, but that's not true. I mean, people really value culture, right? Life insurance is worth $1.22. You don't want that on a statement. So I feel like there's like a really outdated way to communicate the value of total rewards as like a balance sheet, and I just have hated that approach since day one. There are some nice systems that do it, and I do think it's a good thing to have in front of employees, so it's always top of mind, but I think you shouldn't expect too much from presenting a balance sheet to an employee. I think it's a lot more about how they're experiencing it. Maybe you should have them describe total rewards, and if it's not to your liking, then you know where your work has to happen. Does that make sense? Yeah. A little bit of a squishy answer, but any other questions I can help with? Great. Well, I'm around for the next day or so, so if anything comes up, I'd be happy to talk about it. Thank you so much. I'll just point out that on the slide here, there's a QR code. If you're interested in getting news related to Total Rewards leadership topics, this is available to the public, so it's free, and we'd be happy to have you on our mailing list. And you'll also see announcements for when those tools that I described to you are available if you do that. So, okay, thanks.
Thank you.